What's going on, guys? Today we have a very special guest in our Dumbo, New York City office, and that is Chris Rudin. He is a disabled type 1 diabetic powerlifter and keynote speaker. Today, Chris is going to be talking about progressive overload. We're going to cover 4 topics. We're going to talk about what progressive overload is, what people usually get wrong about progressive overload, 3 common mistakes that come along with progressive overload from a macro scale, and then we're going to talk about how to use progressive overload in your program. Without further ado, I'm going to kick it to Chris.
What's going on, guys? Today we're at the BarBend office and we're talking about progressive overload. Progressive overload is one of those clickbait buzzword things that we talk about in the lifting community, but what do we really mean? Simply, progressive overload is a gradual increase in stress on your body over time. Progressive overload is vital to getting stronger, to getting bigger, and having more power. But unfortunately, a lot of people get progressive overload wrong. These 3 major misconceptions I see all the time, and they are just add more weight, bro. We have one school of thought is add more weight, bro. Then we have the only add more weight, bro. And then we have the no need to train heavy, bro. So I want to go through these 3 misconceptions. Regardless of whether your goal is hypertrophy, power, or strength, progressive overload is necessary for you to progress. Progress requires progress. Change requires change. You can't do the same thing over and over and expect different results. Just add more weight, bro, is a common thing, and I fell victim to it. Like anything in life, it's not linear. You cannot continually add more weight because your body doesn't get strong that way. It doesn't happen. If it did, these pro power lifters and pro Olympic lifters and pro bodybuilders even would be lifting 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 pound deadlifts. The bodybuilders would be 700 pounds of pure muscle. That's not the case. There's a limiting rate at a certain point, so you cannot continually add weight. Then we have the second philosophy, which is people who are like, only add more weight, bro. They focus on it because we know progressive overload is effective and necessary for each of your goals, but they only focus on getting stronger. Whatever it takes. They will sacrifice 90% of their routine to get that extra 10%. You're creating a terrible foundation just to accomplish a goal that you convince yourself exists, but in reality, it doesn't. That's not a necessity to only add more weight. It's just one factor. And the third school of thought is, don't go heavy, bro. Never go heavy, bro. Just do more volume. Volume is definitely an important aspect, just as progressive overload is. But if we stop treating them as tools that we need to use together and start treating them as we can only choose one tool for the job, it's never gonna work. You can't build a house with just a hammer, but you damn sure need a hammer to build a house. And that's what progressive overload is. You can't neglect that, and some people do. Just because you can get results with just volume or just progressive overload or just a certain method doesn't mean you should. So regardless of whether you think you have to add weight every week or you only have to add weight every week or you never have to lift heavier, each factor plays a huge role in your progress and you have to incorporate it into your program. All right, so now that we talked about all the wrong ways to progressive overload, let's talk about some of the better or more optimal ways. I'm not gonna say the only way or the right way because there is no right way, but some of the optimal ways that I've found work for me and a lot of my clients with progressive overload. Take your goal. If it's hypertrophy, progressive overload with your volume. Slowly increase volume over time. You can also add weight over time. You can also increase the range of motion over time. You can do all these little facets with progressive overload. And you have to factor what you're doing with your life. In a calorie deficit, it's going to be very difficult to progressive overload with weight. Focus on intensity. Control what you can control, and you'll always be successful. So what did we learn about progressive overload? It's not that you need to overload yourself with science. It's not that you need to overload yourself with weight. It's that you need to find a form of progression that's relevant to your training style and your goal right now. Whether that's increasing total volume, increasing weight, increasing intensity or frequency, we have to understand there's no single parameter in training that's gonna get you to your goal. It takes multiple variables to get you your goal. Progressive overload is very important, but it's just one tool. So make sure you find the best way to use it for you.
So if you took one thing away from this video, it's that progressive overload isn't just adding weight to the bar. There are multiple ways to progressive overload the body for different goals. A big thank you to Chris for coming into our Dumbo office. If you want to follow Chris and learn a little bit more about what he does, you can find him on Instagram @ChrisRudin, and you can visit his website, chrisrudin.com.